What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me for another episode of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by... I ain't got no sponsors yet, but I'm working on it. But anyway, this is episode number 9, and I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done one of these, but I'm sure like you, I've been enjoying the summer. We took a couple vacations, enjoying the time with the family, just kind of recouping, I think. But I've been itching to get back on and do one of these, so I'm super excited to get this episode number 9 up for you guys. Today's guest is from a company called OmFloat. I have awesome couple, Brooks and Amy, who own and run OmFloat. And what OmFloat is, it's a sensory deprivation or flotation tank. And again, if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, you've heard him talk about, and you know what a flotation tank is and what it does and all the positives from it. In this episode, I go with Brooks and Amy, kind of go through the top 3 major concerns that people have, kind of hold people back from wanting to try this out. Because again, it was, for myself, getting into this box in complete darkness, soundproof, audio proof, again, sensory deprivation. It was a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, but I think the drive from wanting to try and see what type of benefits I would get from that just outweighed any hesitations that I had. And as of now, I probably got at least maybe 20, 30, 40 floats under my belt right now. So again, if you have hesitations or any questions about it, I think we touch upon the top 3. But again, if we didn't, check out their website, reach out to them. They are absolutely more than happy to talk to you about any hesitations that you might have to get you to try it out. And again, if you try it out, I would recommend trying at least 3 times. That the first time I went, I think I was just sitting in that tank, kind of like not expecting or not knowing what to expect, I guess I should say. But it wasn't probably into maybe the 3rd, 4th, or 5th float that I kind of got my groove. You kind of know what to expect and kind of really sit back and relax and kind of enjoy the experience. So definitely check it out. Again, excuse me, getting over a cold too. But we got OmFloat on, Brooks and Amy on today. Again, we talk about flotation, and we kind of go off and have some cool conversations about some other topics. Always enjoy my time with Brooks and Amy. Again, this podcast turned out to be shorter than I expected. This is going to be the first time I actually went to their location to record this, so it kind of worked out in that way. But it was weird. It felt like we talked for hours, but then when I played it back, because I think we go over so much information, but then I go back and I see the duration of it. But I think it's very cool. Any and all information that you may have about wanting to contact them to get more information will be posted underneath this video. And again, if you live in the area, check it out. I know a lot of jiu-jitsu friends have, I'd say jiu-jitsu, cut me a break because of the cold today. But anyway, I know a lot of martial arts friends have tried this out. If you're an athlete, or if you want to improve pretty much whatever craft that you have, it's just a higher form of meditation, and it's definitely something I think you should check out. So without further ado, let's cut my jibber jabber and let's jump into this podcast. So we're at episode 9 with Brooks and Amy from OmFloat. All right, hope you guys enjoy. Thanks. So I appreciate you guys coming in on the podcast, checking this out. Right now I'm sitting here with Amy and Brooks. They're the owner of OmFloat out here in Loudoun County. So if you guys are in Virginia, this is definitely need to check this place out. If you're into floating, for that matter. But for everybody listening, I'll definitely put all the links where you can check out their website and how you can connect with them, because reach out with them with any questions that you got. And if you guys are ever out in the area, that you guys can come out and definitely check this out. So thank you guys for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think for starting things out, I know a lot of people listening already know pretty much what floating is, or some people refer to it as like sensory deprivation. Can you guys kind of give your point of view on floating and how maybe you guys came across it, or what the impact has been on your lives and something of that matter?
Well, the impact on our lives has been immeasurable. It's just completely changed everything. And as far as how we got into it, it was early 2000s, and basically I was coaching, aspiring to go to the Olympics for shooting, and was looking for different mental training aids because you can only train your body so much, and then it's all between your ears. And ran across flotation therapy and some studies that were done with athletes, and it's like, I got to try this. And we were living in Dallas at the time, and did a search, and closest place was like Boulder, Colorado or something.
Really?
And but that same web page had a classified section, and there was a tank for sale 20 miles away. And we still own that tank. It's in tank room 2. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 more that are identical to it. And basically bought the tank. It was a couple of weeks before I could float in it. I had to order salt and figure out how to put it together, and because it was very incomplete. And started floating, and I was competing at the time, and I was middle of the road at best. Mm-hmm. And within a year, I started winning. A year and a half, I started winning state titles, regional titles, and then the following year, I won a national title.
Yeah.
And so as far as that goes, that's how it helped me there. As far as just being effective in my work, I became more and more effective in my work. I had an extremely stressful job. I was construction superintendent. Sometimes I would have, a couple hundred people working for me, different trades, and working extremely long hours, and just made me more effective.
So your first experience in the float tank was actually you purchasing one and putting it together.
Yep.
And then getting in the tank.
Yep, sure did. The studies I ran across were so compelling. The studies were, I believe, University of Washington with rifle shooters, University of Oslo with archery. There was some stuff with freestyle aerial skier, things like that. And these people were using them. And then there were the studies. And it was so compelling that I was willing to spend several $1,000s to own one.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty crazy. I mean, so because again, like you said, they're not cheap. So what? This was cool with you and Amy in the beginning.
We'd been married maybe a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so you guys are still in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah, we
so it's
were,
just like
totally. And I didn't know what to think about it. I didn't know anything about him. He just said, and he didn't even ask me. He just came home and said he was doing it. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I kind of went along with it, let him do his thing, and it was actually, I don't even know how long, quite a while before I decided to try it myself.
Okay.
And finally got in it just for relaxation.
Yeah.
I had short sessions here and there. I didn't do it very often, but it was intriguing enough that I could go along with it. Mm-hmm. So.
Because I know even with my wife, she's been hesitant about doing it, but she knows how often I come over here that, there are a couple times that we're in the area and she's like, maybe we should swing by. But by that time I got, it either turns late or I got the kids with me because I want to come here without the kids so she can actually kind of look around because I think, she's on the cusp of doing that. So she doesn't listen to my podcast. So if she does, I want to make sure that she heard that you were able to spend a couple $1,000s without any issue. So that was cool. So the Samadi, is that how you pronounce the tanks? Samadi tanks? Mm-hmm. So those are pretty much like the first kind of commercial ones that came out, or how does that work?
The company was the first commercial tank. They went into business in about 76, I believe. The name was given to them by Dr. John Lilly, the originator of the consciousness research, where he worked with sensory deprivation. He pretty much drew the basic tank on a napkin at dinner whenever he was with the Perrys, which are the owners of Samadi Tank Company. They're well into their 80s now, but they're both still living in very good shape. And we're going to be, myself, I'm going to be seeing them next week and talking to them.
Oh, yeah.
Going to Portland, Oregon for the annual float conference,
Okay.
Which is next week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So with those tanks, I've seen other versions of them. You got the Samadhi ones that you guys have, and then I've seen like sort of like the pod ones, and they kind of get a little modern and a little crazy with the design. But I've from what I've read, pretty much the originals, I think, still either work the best. Is that? Have you heard the same things or?
Yes, they are the only ones that are guaranteed light proof.
Okay. And that's the biggest complaint I heard with the egg kind of ones, that you kind of get that spillage of that.
Yeah, and a lot of the newer ones only heat the water whenever the filtration is running, and then the entire time that you're floating, the temperature is always dropping, and the Samadhi is constantly keeping them to temperature.
Okay.
They're the simplicity of them. Of course, they have evolved. But they're still kept pretty simple. Those big egg-shaped ones, sometimes we hear the horror stories of people trying to get them into their float center or into their house, where it's like they've got all the walls built and everything, and then the tank shows up and they have to tear down walls to get them in. Well, if you can, basically the Samadhi comes apart into panels, flat panels, can be gotten into any room, even through small doors, and it's just it's a series of panels, but the modern ones are they're nice looking, but they all look the same from the inside.
Right.
They're all dark to varying degrees, but the Samadhi is the one that's the darkest.
Yeah. So I mean, your guys' setup here is pretty cool, because you got the shower, everything's kind of contained in a room. So the person, once you come in, you're pretty much left alone until your float's done, and then you can get everything that you need is pretty much in the room.
Right, and we designed it that way. We definitely took into consideration that the most modest people that may be out there, so that you can go in, you can lock the door. You shouldn't have to be able to come out for anything unless you need to go to the restroom, which we have a restroom straight down the hallway. You never enter a public area to go to the restroom. Robes are provided for you, so that in case you do need to bounce out and go to the restroom, we take into consideration, we try to take into consideration everybody in the public, the most modest, and we've heard horror stories of other float centers where people come out of the float tanks and to go to the restroom, and they don't even bother to put on a robe. They just birthday suit and streak down the hallway. Well, here that's part of the reason we have a restroom back in the where they're not in a public area, where they're not going to have to come to a public area.
Okay.
So we don't encourage streaking to the bathroom. That's why we provide the robes, but and we're not aware that it's happened, but because we've got that area closed off and oftentimes, and most of the time when people are floating, we're not back there.
Yeah.
So
I can see how it happens, because I'm so relaxed afterwards. It's like it's like, all right, I don't care. But it's definitely cool from floating, and I think I've probably done it maybe 20, 30 times now. So, and again, the experience even for myself is completely different. But a lot of my friends who do listen have wanted to try it. Have been able to bring in a couple to try it. For somebody starting out, what are some of the things that you've heard that people who may want to try floating but are kind of hesitant to doing it? What are maybe the top 3 reasons that you've heard of them not wanting to do it?
The biggest one is claustrophobia. Okay. And the thing is that a lot of people say they're claustrophobic, but clinical claustrophobia is completely a different thing, and most people are just nervous about getting into an enclosed space. Yeah. And the thing about the tank is that if you can get in and get the door closed into complete darkness, you have no sensation of being closed in. We've got one gentleman that he was diagnosed clinical claustrophobic, and he works for a 3-letter agency. You know, he's a high up at a 3-letter agency, and PTSD, things like that. And he was a nervous wreck the first time. Well, now he's up to probably about 20 floats. Yeah. He floats every 2 weeks unless he's out on assignment. Right. And then he'll try to float somewhere else if there's one someplace nearby. So that's somebody with clinical claustrophobia. Most people say they are claustrophobic are not clinical claustrophobics, and it's just nervous. And I've put literally hundreds of people into a tank. Sometimes I'll spend a little extra time with them to get them a little bit more comfortable with the idea. And once they get in, it's like, and get the door closed, it's like that space that seems confined opens up into an infinite space. Right. So it never triggers that anxiety. Once they get calmed down, it's usually the anticipation of getting in there that's the problem.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Shutting that door, because even the total amount of times that I float, you do kind of go through that maybe 1 or 2 seconds when you're shutting that door. And it's like, because you kind of know what's coming. But then again, once you get back, and like I said, the water's so warm at that time, where you just kind of, it's like sinking into like something nice and warm. Yeah. And then once the water stops undulating, I mean, like I said, I think you're kind of already in it and good to go. Yeah. So claustrophobia being one of them. What?
Yeah, the people are concerned about drowning, and that's absolutely impossible, because for one thing, the water is only about 10, 11 inches deep, and it's super saturated. Each tank has the solution has about 850 pounds of Epsom salt, and so it makes it a total of about 175 gallons in each tank. So it's only about 10 or 11 inches deep, and you would have to get your face underwater to drown, obviously, and all you'd have to do is get your face underwater for about 0.2 of a second, and you're going to be coming out of there, because once that saturation of Epsom salt hits your mucous membranes, your eyes, your nose, everything, it's going to start stinging, and you're going to be out of there. Yep. So even if you're asleep, it will wake you up rather abruptly. But it's not hard to keep it out of your eyes and nose. I personally have near somewhere around 1,000 floats, and I'll occasionally get it in my eye, but it's usually because I've itched a place on my face or something like that, and so it's not a big concern. It's not a big concern. And then trying to roll over in that in that shallow of a solution is you'd almost have to set up and then intentionally lay on your belly to get yourself in that position where you could possibly drown. And it's not possible.
I tried it last night when I was floating. I tried to flip over, and it was such an effort just to get myself flipped over. I ended up like not being able to go the direction I wanted to go, and falling back and just making a huge splash inside the tank, and it just didn't work at all to even flip over. So
yeah, I think I've tried. It's crazy difficult. I mean, have you found, is there a difference between men and women coming into the tank, or they're pretty much claustrophobia or the fear of possibly drowning, that's kind of even out on both sides?
Well, guys tend to not admit those kind of things, and women will more readily admit those things. So I'm the one that gives the majority of the pre-float talks and answers questions. And I would say by and large the women are the ones more likely to share their feelings about going into the tank. So as far as guys go, I've had a few. Sure, absolutely. That are kind of nervous, or I can detect that they're nervous. Yet, some of them will deny that they're nervous, even though I can tell. And but that's absolutely normal. I've got I've got 1,000, close to 1,000 floats or somewhere in that neighborhood, and every time I get into the tank, I get that little bit of nervousness, because every float's completely different, and you never know. You never know what's going to happen. And it's just, I think the nervousness for me comes from the mystery of not knowing what's going to happen, because every time is completely different.
Now, when you say what's going to happen, you're talking like experience-wise. Like people listening who might say, "What's going to happen?" They're like, "Oh my God, what could that mean?"
Just the different kinds of experiences. I've had literally everything from out-of-body experiences to, being confronted with certain things that I need to change in my life. To just really wild experiences where I've ended up in some other world, I guess, or very, very lucid dream. I can't say I've ever had a bad dream, but I've had some that were kind of pointing out things that I kind of needed to work on, and it's kind of hard to take criticism sometimes, especially from the universe, and but it does. You get in there and you kind of turn inwards and kind of contemplate sometimes. That's every float's completely different.
Yeah, because I think for people who meditate or maybe tried to meditate, I mean, floating kind of makes you almost like an expert of kind of getting in that relaxive state to really kind of open up your mind or just really kind of just relax. Because I may even meditating on my own, just sitting, you're feeling your butt in the seat, or you're hearing everything, or, you're feeling the shirt on your back or something like that. While you're in there, maybe after 10, 15 minutes, you can really start getting into that place where you're still awake, but kind of in that dream state, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even in my setting meditation, which we meditate every morning, I'll, like just now, the air conditioner kicked on.
Right.
Well, I'll be sitting back here meditating, I'll hear the air conditioner kick on, and we've got a little belt that puts out a tiny little squeak, and whenever you're setting, trying to be still, your mind, you're not giving them, the mind is always seeking something to grab hold of.
Right.
So in a tank, there's nothing to grab hold of, and eventually it just kind of turns inwards, or you start noticing different things about your own body or your own thoughts. It's kind of like, oftentimes with me, it's kind of like I'll find myself getting caught in some sort of a thought process, and oftentimes I'll start to recognize that some of those thoughts are self-deprecating, and I'm kind of going, wait a minute, where'd that thought come from? That's BS, and it's like, why am I thinking that? That's not true. That's the monkey mind lying to me, and that's where a lot of the benefit comes from the tank, is because you're able to be an observer of your own thoughts, and to catch those things that are kind of holding you back in life sometimes, and recognize them and realize they're bullshit. Just like, is it okay say that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if this was a G-rated show or not.
That's why we're on the internet. They wouldn't give me a TV show.
Yeah. So that's so much that goes through our head, and what holds us back is just bullshit constructs of our own mind that have been put there by, whether it be parents or society or whatever it may be, and oftentimes when you're in the tank, you start going, wait a minute, where'd that come from? That's not true, and that gives you an opportunity to kind of evaluate your own thought process, and the tank can be used for so many things.
Have you been getting a lot of the people have that using your tanks? I mean, do a lot kind of open up on what they've seen or what they experienced?
Oh, sure.
I mean, are you getting a lot? Is it like maybe a common kind of reoccurrence or something? Is it more for relaxation, for meditation, or just people just curious on what can they can?
It's a little of all of those. I would say now that by far the majority of the people that come here now are by referral. Somebody else has floated here, and they had a good experience, and they'll talk about it. And I would say probably 80-90% our new clients are referrals.
Yeah.
They heard about it through a friend that has been here or has been to another float center. You know,
I mean, if anything, people should at least try it once. I mean, if you can get through the first one, try to at least get 3 under your belt or something like that.
Yeah, and really, the thing is the first one is mostly just getting accustomed to that. To be honest with you, kind of weird environment because it's just you.
Yeah.
And then even gravity disappears after a while. Your body disappears oftentimes. And you just kind of become consciousness floating in a void, which is a really, really cool feeling. But it's just getting... people are open. Some people open up. Of course, whenever you've got 4 different people coming out of the tank, oftentimes you don't have an opportunity to talk to them in depth.
Right.
But some of them will talk about some of their dreams or visions or journeys, so to speak. The regular floaters that we've had, we see them oftentimes make major changes in their lives.
Okay.
And for the better, and whether it be leaving a job or and striking out and following a dream or whatever, and that's probably something they were contemplating anyway. But something about being alone with yourself kind of opens up something that it's kind of like life's too short to jack around going this job I hate or whatever it may be.
Because when you say that, when getting in that tank and being by yourself. You guys recommend the 90-minute time limit. Right? Why is that? Because I've seen other float centers that do maybe 60. Have there ever been 30?
We actually found somebody that does that today, and we don't get it. The science and the research is so solid, and she knows maybe a little bit more about it than I do. But what's it called?
The ultradian rhythm, which is part of our circadian rhythm.
Right.
So many of our body functions operate in these 90-minute cycles.
Okay.
Like our mood cycles, our hunger cycles, our sleep cycles. So the 90-minute float cycles coincide with that and tend to give the better experience because your body... A lady came out today and said probably 88 minutes or so in, she just kind of woke up and was done. And then just as she was thinking about getting out, the light came on, which indicated it was time to get out, which meant the end of the 90 minutes. Like, yep, that coincides exactly with that ultradian rhythm. It's just kind of what our body and our brain seems to be in tune to.
Yeah, and that's true because I think my last 2 floats, the exact same experience happened, where it's just like, when I had to use the bathroom, but again, it was like 5 minutes left anyway once I got out, but it was like, that's pretty. So 90 minutes, and it doesn't seem at all like 90 minutes.
Most of the time it doesn't. It just depends what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a lot going on in your life that you're having to mull over and contemplate, then you're going to spend quite a bit of time mulling over and contemplating and possibly getting some answers, some solutions to those things. And sometimes those floats can seem a bit longer, but most of the time they go by fairly quickly. And it's just, but again, there's no such thing as a bad float, plain and simple. Even if sometimes, and I've had a lot of floats, and I've had some that were difficult, and it was usually because I needed to work on something.
Okay.
And it is, but the 90 minutes, there's a lot of other float centers that offer only an hour or even less, and I feel like that's really kind of shortened people, and they just simply haven't done the research. They haven't been to the conference and heard that. There's a very close knit float community out there of people that opened up float centers, and the thing that we all have in common is that this was a calling. And we were kind of called to open a float center, and we're not really sure why, but we suddenly find ourselves being drawn towards opening a float center, and they do. And then there's some that just kind of like, oh well, maybe that seems like a good business. Well, the there's two different kinds. Those that are in it for the business, and some that are in it. Of course, it's all business, but then there's some that are in it because the benefit that it brings to people, and they've seen it. They've seen it in their own lives, and they've seen it in other people's lives once they started sharing the tank with them, and then they open up Float Center. And I mean, we've seen absolute miracles come out of the tanks over and over and over, and really changed people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
That's why we want to do it right.
If you got the opportunity to visit, I think you definitely should, because I think that's one of the cool things I like about here. You kind of come in here and you got that open atmosphere. You know, it doesn't feel, the times that I've come, I'm never forced to go back. You know, when I'm done, it's not like rushed out the door. It's like, hey, take a seat, stay as long as you want, and then it's not, personally, I haven't sat down and talked with other people, but there have been times I've seen like the same people here, and it's sort of like this underlining, like what motorcycles do when they drive past, they kind of give each other like a little signal or something like that. But that's what I think is really cool, is that kind of community, that float community. Because again, I mean, if I keep saying, if you haven't tried it, definitely try it. Try it a couple times just to kind of get that experience. Because again, like you said, the first time, even for me, I was just kind of so excited to finally try this, doing the research, learning about it, kind of manning up to try to do that. And then once you're in here, you just kind of all right, now what's next? And you're kind of expecting, you know, I was over expecting, I guess I could say, and then I had to try it again, you know, and then you just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
Like
that's the advice I give people, is that the best thing to do is avoid watching all the YouTube videos of other people's experiences, because yours is going to be different.
Okay.
And avoid trying to learn too much about it. Come in with a complete open mind, and with no expectations, because even from my sports coaching and everything else, having expectations gets in the way of whether it be a float or a performance or a game or whatever it is. The best thing to do is just be in the moment, right, and be present. Just be, and that's the best way to approach it. It's okay to have the knowledge of those things and watch a few YouTube videos and listen to Joe Rogan talk about it and things like that. That's fine, but come in and know that your experience is going to be your experience, right, and it's not going to be like any of those other people's. And that's the best way to approach it. That's the way the people have the best experience. And, you know, I have people come in here fairly often that they think they know about floating more than I do. And they may know some facts I don't know, but then they get into the tank and they'll come out going, I had one say, he said, man, I didn't know shit. You know, so yeah, it's not one of those things that it's such a subjective experience that it's one of those things that you can't really, it's hard to talk about. It's really hard to talk about.
Right. Because I remember you always say the tank gives you what you need.
Yeah.
I remember one time I popped out and you're like, how was it? And I was like, I slept. He goes, and you needed to sleep.
Yeah.
Because there'll be a couple times my snoring, I've woken myself up just snoring it in there. And again, it goes back to what you said earlier. There's no way that you're going to drown or sink, because like I said, I'm falling asleep numerous times. And I think that's what's cool, because I think my mind will kind of go off on a tangent and I'll realize it and I'll kind of bring it back center, and then all of a sudden I kind of zone out, and then all of a sudden I'll get some whatever I'm zoning out in will kind of play into some type of either memory, and the mind will start going again. I have to hold it back. And then again, an hour and a half is it flies by. I mean, at most it may feel like a half hour if you're in there kind of going in and out.
Well, and the thing is, you come out feeling just awesome. Right. I mean, it is an altered state of consciousness in the tank, and you can revisit that altered state of consciousness after you floated. There's definitely an effect that lasts afterwards. It varies with each individual, but we had a guy the other day, he said, I schedule my floats about once every 3 weeks, because he said I could feel the effects for about 2.5 weeks. And, you know, so everybody's different. Everybody's completely different. And You know, I mean, some people may not have a high enough awareness that they feel much effect.
Right.
And then other ones will feel the effects for 2, even 3 weeks afterwards. I'm thinking it's more just them being aware of themselves as opposed to being distracted by the stuff outside.
Mhm.
And the thing is if you're more aware within, you're able to look at what's going on around you more objectively as opposed to soaking it in and it having an effect on you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of the things.
Because that's the thing. I mean, you can't bring your phone in there, so you're definitely disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I know you talked about claustrophobia, drowning. I mean, is there another one that kind of people are hesitant from trying this out?
Being alone with their own thoughts.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. I think that ties into the others in a way because in this day and age, it's so easy to keep yourself distracted. And but think about it. What did we do 100 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Before we had radio, before we had TV, before we had all these things, you know, I mean, you spent time alone. You know, of course, a lot of your day was spent just day-to-day survival,
Right.
Because oftentimes back then there weren't grocery stores unless you were in an urban area. You had to grow your own food.
Mm-hmm.
So you would throw yourself into those things, and you had an opportunity to spend time with your own thoughts.
Right.
And I think that with the media, I'll try not to get too deep off into this, telling you what to think,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, and the opinion of others that you see through social media. I think it's very detrimental
Yeah.
to us in the long run, because we tend to take on those things. And whenever you learn to spend time with yourself and to watch your thoughts and everything, you become where you're less affected by those
Mm-hmm.
things, and you build up a immunity to some of the craziness that's going on around us.
Right. Because you definitely do, even for myself, that relaxed state coming out of the tank, or being able to knowing the experience of being in a tank and going through like that float and having a couple under your belt. I can be lying in bed and kind of get myself back there in a sense, because now I remember how it feels and kind of getting. But even saying what you're saying about people having trouble disconnecting or being caught up in technology and stuff. I mean, even my parents live out in the country, and if I head out there and I'll take my kids outside once the sun sets and have them look, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Once you just get out of like the city, or what the light does to the sky, and once you kind of get rid of that and what's kind of up there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's just it's pretty intense.
Were you raised out there?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Born, yeah.
I didn't know you were a country boy.
Yeah, I was. Well, it's weird. I was being born in the Bronx. I always grew up, consider myself a city boy, but now living we moved to Virginia mid '80s, and then now I consider myself a country boy with the New York accent. For real, it's like, I think we talked about it before. It's either live in a city or give me 10 acres with no neighbors.
Uh-huh.
But the suburbs are killing me. But yeah, like now I go back. It's like you definitely kind of respect what you had that you're not being able to do pretty much every day anymore.
Well, that's the thing that we tell people, is that a good thing to do after a float is to go out in nature, go for a hike. That we have several that take that opportunity, and literally where we are here in Ashburn, we're a half hour from the Shenandoah Valley.
Right.
We're 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the Appalachian Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And and we have people that that they've taken some of my advice to heart, or they found it themselves, that if they take and just go for a walk out in nature, they'll notice things, because your senses have been deprived for an hour and a half. It raises your awareness, and you may walk down that trail and see see an insect you've never seen before, or a plant, or appreciate the beauty of something you've looked at a million times before that you just kind of took for granted. You could be walking down the trail and see a garter snake trying to eat a frog that was way too big for it.
Right.
I'll have to show you that video. But just it teaches you to appreciate things, because whenever you're kind of cut off from everything, it seems to clear the mud out of your mind, and then you go out and you appreciate those things around you more, and so that's another side benefit.
So with all the people that you've helped and worked with over the years, is that sort of like, what is maybe the biggest issue that you're seeing with people? Maybe the people too stressed out, not too caught up in technology, or
all of it. They're too much in their own heads. That's the biggest thing. I mean, we're guilty of that. We sometimes get wrapped up in our own heads and our own feelings and perceptions and everything else, and that's the biggest problem right now, is that they think they identify themselves with how much money they make, or what kind of job they have, or what kind of car they drive.
Right.
And and really all that stuff is temporary. It's all temporary. But the true self is eternal, and that's the only part that really matters. And to get out there and to enjoy life, as opposed to get stuck in that daily grind. Go, if you don't float, go take a walk in the woods or something. And so that's the biggest problem I see with people, is they get wrapped up in their own heads, and it's called so many different things. It's called ADD or ADHD. It's called anxiety disorders. It's called whatever. It's all the same thing. It's people are too much in their own heads and not living from their heart as much. And with the Olympics going on, you can see those people that are competing living in their own, living from their heart.
Right.
They're pursuing something that is meaningful to them, and throwing everything at it, and the persistence. I know a lot of Olympic athletes, and that's the one thing that I see in common, is the persistence. That nothing will stop them. Nothing will stop them. They'll keep going. Yeah, on the day of the competition at the Olympics, one person may have a better day than the other. On another day, Michael Phelps might not have won some of those gold medals.
Right.
But again, that's something that's done it. And as far as using the tank for sport, I think it's one of the most powerful tools, hands down, of for any sport or life, because the most powerful thing that we possess is our imagination.
Because you said some of the athletes do float.
Yes,
right?
Yes, they absolutely do. We just posted a post on our Facebook page this morning. Allie Raceman, she's. Some people are arguing she's the best gymnast that's ever been known. I mean, she's that has ever existed, and she floats.
Yeah.
There's Olympic rowers. There's, gosh, I don't know. Some of the folks that I coached, they floated, and they, top NCAA, in Southeast Conference, in rifle shooting, things like that. And it's a great tool for visualization. And the most powerful thing we have is our imagination.
Right.
And just take and see yourself going through your process, whether it be running, swimming, shooting, whatever your sport is, whatever you choose to do, whether it could be work, and just see yourself performing at the very top of your capability. And the interesting thing is that the mind, or the brain barely knows the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Yeah. And there was a very interesting study done a few years ago where they had had 3 groups. They had one group, they measured their bicep, triceps, and they said, okay, well, we want you back here in 6 weeks, and we're going to measure you again. Then they had another group that they said, okay, well, we want you to spend 30, 45 minutes, I forget what the study was, so many times a week doing curls.
Right.
And then they had another group that they, half of them were doing curls half the time, or they did the curls half the time, and then the other one, and then the other half of the time they just visualized doing curls. And then they had another group that all they did was visualize doing curls for like that 30-minute period,
right.
So many times a week. And the interesting thing is that they actually saw an increase in the bicep, tricep measurements in the ones that didn't do
Just
anything but visualize. And that's because the mind was getting the body ready for what the mental movie that they were running.
That's crazy
through.
though, because I remember doing that in basketball and hearing about the same study of somebody shooting free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And we would, half of the practice would be that, and after lunch we would spend an hour and a half listening to like affirmations or visualizing us
Sure.
doing the
Sound like you had a good coach.
technique.
Yeah.
And this was in but that's crazy to see that there's actually growth, because you'd figure that working out you have to tear down the fibers, let them rebuild, but if you're able to do that without,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as much growth as
Right.
other two that actually did do some curls.
Yeah.
And if I recall, it's been a while since I read that study, but if I recall, the ones that spent half their time visualizing and half their time actually doing curls, I think they had the most growth, the most increase in their bicep, tricep measurements. I can go on with stories like that. I know an Olympic gold medalist personally that.
Well, tell me more about like how do you see them, not in a sense different, but sort of like the same? Because I know for me growing up, I always figured that the athlete was just genetically more gifted than I. And now that the older that I've gotten, I'm finding out that, it's not that. You can have gift, but if you're not working hard, that stuff's not going to balance out. Because I don't know if, did you see the women's cyclists, or the road races? So there was one where the American Mara Abbott, I pulled her up.
I know the name, yeah.
Because she had a great tweet. Well, she was in second place, and they had a Dutch woman in first. And there was this one downhill area where it was treacherous, where the men, 3 of them crashed the day before. So this Mara Abbott,
I saw the corner where they were crashing.
So the American Mara and the Dutch were 2 minutes ahead of the peloton, I think that's what they call it, something like whatever the pack. But
Mm-hmm.
the Dutch, she was a minute ahead of the American. So she goes on this downhill, she wipes out. She ends up fracturing 3 vertebrae and knocks us out. I mean, she's laying over the curb. I mean, she looked like she was dead. But then now Mara was in first place, so she had a 2-minute lead. So then there were 3 cyclists behind her, and you can tell how they were working together. In the end, with that 2-minute lead, with probably, I think it was maybe 15 kilometers left, she ended up coming in 4th place, and she missed it by, she literally lost the race at the finish line. I mean, they all 3 passed her, and 2 seconds later, she passes like the finish line. And then I, reading her, what did she say?
And this was the one that was injured?
No, this was the American.
Oh,
the one that was in, unfortunately she was out. But then I remember, just hearing that, or seeing that agony of being so close to having a medal, and then thinking that you're going to get gold, and then end up getting nothing. And then the tweet that she puts out, it goes, "Perhaps it takes longer after success than defeat, but is likely inevitable. Fear, what am I tomorrow?" And I kind of wish I heard stuff like athletes or Olympic athletes kind of have the same concerns as like everyday people have, and it's
a different mindset. I've been around a lot of them, and the perseverance that they have, the way they think. That's the most important thing, is that they believe that they can do it. They have absolute. It's I went through a clinic, and Olympian was teaching the clinic, and he says trust. He said if you could boil it all down to one word, it's trust. Trust yourself, trust your equipment, Trust your training, trust your coaches, trust, all those things. If you don't trust your coach, find another one. It's all about, trusting yourself deep down, and that you can do that. And there is a difference in the Winter Olympics. I think it was the 2010 Winter Olympics. There was the Slovenians. I'm just hats off to them. One of the smallest countries there is, but they win the most medals per capita of anybody, hands down. Tiny country, but man, they kick ass. And but anyway, cross country skier. She's doing the warm up laps. They had kind of a warm up track that they would warm up on for cross country. And she fell off of a bridge, about 8 or 10 feet.
Right.
Broke her ribs.
Right.
And, of course, they tried to stop her from competing because she was obviously hurt quite badly. And she's like, no, I've got to race.
Right. So
she gets out there and I mean, she wasn't giving up. And she was operating on that true self. She wasn't, she's like, I don't care how much I hurt. I've trained for this,
right,
my whole life. And she gets out there and she bronze medals. And she collapsed literally onto a stretcher.
Yeah.
They had a stretcher waiting for her at the end of the race. Yep. And they load her up. She had a punctured lung. She was messed up. They would not allow her to fly home from Sochi. They would not allow her to fly home because it could have killed her, because of the injuries that she had, just the altitude difference. Yeah. And I know people like that. It's just they
Are
do
people
that.
just born like that?
No.
Okay, see, there's some hope. Because right now my kids, they don't want to. They get tired real easy, and I'm like, come on, man.
In my experience as a coach, and I've coached hundreds of people, and it's Olympic shooting, is that, and I've had lots of different ones, and I had one young man that showed up that he had tremendous natural ability. He never trained, and he would go to matches and he would win and everything. And then I had another young man that he could barely keep it on the paper when I first met him. He had no natural ability, but he wanted it.
Right.
He wanted it bad. And guess who made the national team? The young man that had zero natural ability, that wanted it bad. The other one was kind of like, hey, I don't have to practice. I can show up to matches and little small matches around town, at different regionals and stuff like that, and win. But then he'd go home and he wouldn't train, and then he'd show up at the next match 6 months later without firing a shot in between, or training or dry firing or doing anything, and he would win. Mm-hmm. But pretty soon the young man that wanted it was surpassing him, and he started winning. And then he made up through the ranks and won and made the national development team, which is the team just below the Olympic team. Yeah. And so yeah, natural ability has nothing to do with it. In fact, from what I've seen, natural ability tends to hold you back. Okay. So because they just they're kind of like, oh well, I can just show up lackadaisically and win, until somebody shows up that wants it real bad.
Now, how can people use floating as a way of training?
Mental imagery.
Okay.
Visualization. And whenever I coach people on visualization, it's not just seeing the mental movie. It's using all of your senses. If you're competing in something and you've done it before, you know what your venue looks like. You know what it smells like. Mm-hmm. Some of them smell pretty bad. They smell like locker rooms, but you know what it smells like. Mm-hmm. You know what it sounds like in that place. You know what it feels like to perform well. Okay? And so what you do is you get in that tank, and you know your process. Old Buddha's saying, with 10,000 repetitions, you become the performance. Mm-hmm. And rather than you just perform the performance, you become a part of it, and you become so engrossed that you forget the sense of self, and you just become what you're doing. And but you get into the tank and you go to that place and you start seeing yourself performing. You hear the place that you're in. You just choose a place that you compete at. What it smells like, and then also, this is the important part, is to feel the emotions of doing well.
Right.
Everybody's done well, whether whatever it may be, and those that have know what it feels like. So the thing is to go into that tank, you're not distracted by anything. And literally, whenever I was visualizing, whenever I'd go into the tank and visualize, sometimes I'd get so lost in it that I would forget where I was. Then suddenly, it's kind of like I would move and I'd feel the water, and it would shock me because I didn't know I was in the tank.
Yeah.
A part of me had gotten lost into that visualization or that dream. Mm-hmm. And the ironic thing about that is I was a competitor too. I compete. I was a precision pistol specialist, Olympic style shooting. And the interesting thing is every time that I would get lost like that, the next time I'd go train, my average scores would have a significant jump. Yeah. And so that's how the tank can be used for that. But it doesn't have to be just sports. Mm-hmm. It could be starting a business. This is how this happened, is that I would get into the tank and I would see this in my mind. And again, the brain barely knows the difference between what's real and imagined. And it started, I just instinctively started living the life of somebody that had built a float center, and then it showed up.
And then for people, a good way to test this out, and it's the same way we did it in basketball camp those whole years ago, is just close your eyes, and we use an orange. He goes, pretend you had an orange in your hand, and just close your eyes and rub your fingers around to feel the texture of the skin, smell it, put it up to your nose and smell it, smell what an orange smells like. And he goes, kind of break the skin. He goes, what happened? You're going to get, juice is going to squirt on you. So feel that. And he goes, then now that you ripped it open, take a bite into it. And he goes, raise your hand if you had like saliva forming in your mouth. And sure enough, man, everybody, you can see your mind can't tell the difference between something real or what's vividly imagined.
Right. And the body will react. Yeah. It does react. So that's the advice I give everybody, is that that asks, is I don't force anything on anybody. Okay. But anybody that asks, anybody that's interested is to basically see what you desire to show up into your life, in your mind's eye, and just hang on to it. Don't have any expectations that it will. That's the important part, because expectations is a block. It gets in the way. But take and just start acting as though, feeling as though those things are already in your life. And there's a high likelihood that they will start appearing in your life. It may take a while, but you've got to hang on. You've got to persist. And Brian, you've known me for 2-3 years. Yeah. When we were in a townhome, one tank in the basement, whenever we started this journey, we had $12,000 in the bank. But we were going to build a float center anyway. And we just hung on to that vision until the money showed up, everything showed up we needed, and now we've got a almost $400,000 facility that is so that people can experience these things and possibly use it to help create things to show up in their life. So that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
And you guys got how many? Was it 4 tanks, 5 tanks in the back?
4 tanks.
4 tanks right now.
4 tanks. We have the capability of adding 2 more, making it a total of 6. And those will probably be showing up sometime next year. We hope at least 1 more next year. And so we'd be 5. And it's we love our job. It's one of those, seeing people coming out. It's funny. Some people come in the door and you'll look at them and their faces are all scrunched up, and they'll go back and they'll float. Then they'll start coming out, floating out from out back, and it's like, who is that person? Right. We don't even recognize them because it's changed. They've changed. Cool. They look relaxed, And stress shows on you, on your face. It does. It really does. And a lot of people don't realize that. Just take a look around at people as you're walking around on the street, and you'll see it. You'll see it. And, so yeah, that's...
Very cool. Look, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me today. This was very cool. I'd love to definitely do it again. Like I said, I only got a good amount of floats under me, but the more I get, I'd definitely like to come back on and talk to you guys about even my experiences and help kind of decipher some of the stuff, because right now I'm still a rookie or a white belt. So when it comes to that.
Yeah, we're all in it together. Nobody gets out alive, man. So,
very cool.
So yeah.
But like I said, for everyone in the area, definitely check them out. If you go to the website, I have all the links where that you can reach out to OmFloat and any other either research that I've seen or that I've come across. I'll definitely have the links and definitely check it out. So, but again, thank you guys. Thank you both for taking the time to come talk. And definitely do this again. Cool.
Wow.